Smith, Mike Am with you. All right, so we got just a little bit of news that trickled in yesterday.
Yeah, you think?
As wild of the last 24, 48 hours that we've seen in NFL free agency.
Well, as wild as the last 15 hours as we've seen in free agency with this whole Maxx Crosby situation with the Ravens, them negating that trade. So we got a lot to chew on there, 89.
Yeah, it's a ton of information. It's a ton of misinformation out there. But at the end of the day, I think teams are not talking about it because I think it is a little bit of that gives me the assumption it has to do with more health, not personal.
Look, over the next 4 hours or so, we're going to be dissecting all the angles of the Maxx Crosby situation and backing out, not to mention Mark Ross, from a front office perspective, is going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes. He can give us great context on what has actually transpired. But you almost forget about some of the other moves that have been made just based off of the Ravens no longer going to have Maxx Crosby as a part of their team after backing out of that trade. What is meant is that it's opened the door. Trey Hendrickson signing a new deal with the Baltimore Ravens. Spent a large chunk of yesterday on Free Agent Frenzy saying, hey, like, where is Trey Hendrickson going to land? Well, it looks like Baltimore now is going to be that new destination. As far as Maxx Crosby is concerned, just another day for him.
Yeah.
At this point, I know concerns about that knee, but he's resting it right now on the plane. Reports have him back in Las Vegas and an opportunity to just get ready for the upcoming season and rehab for a little bit more. Our insiders that have been working overtime at this point, Ian Rappaport, Judy Batista, Mike Garafolo with us right now. Guys, I was watching the extended edition of Insiders yesterday after this news broke. But Ian, anyone who's just joining us right now, just level set where we are.
Where we are is that Maxx Crosby remains a member of the Las Vegas Raiders despite one of the most highly publicized trades that we've seen in some time. 2 first-round picks. The question was it an okay risk for the Ravens to take? They decided ultimately it was not. Crosby now moves forward with the Raiders.
Well, and the question now is, what's next for the Raiders and Maxx Crosby? He reverts back to the Raiders. They could keep him. They have the salary cap space. They could keep him and still go forward with all of the transactions that they have lined up for free agency. Or ever since they thought they were trading him to the Ravens, other teams that were interested in Maxx Crosby have moved on. They've made other deals. They've made other plans. The Cowboys traded for Rashawn Gary. So that would limit the pool of teams that could have interest. Before the trade was made to the Ravens, the Raiders were adamant that they had to get their price or they would not move Maxx Crosby. The price was 2 first-round draft picks. Well, they almost certainly would not be able to get 2 first-round draft picks. Now, there's just teams out there that don't have the space for him and that are not going to sacrifice 2 first-round draft picks, especially now with questions about his knee being raised. So the question is, do the Raiders eventually come off that asking price? Do they come off it now? Do they maybe come off it sometime further down the road? Or do they say, nope, we're going forward with Maxx Crosby? Maxx Crosby is a Las Vegas Raider again, and he's going to continue to be a Las Vegas Raider. This is far, far from over. One of the most dramatic turnarounds we've seen in NFL free agency history.
Yeah, the question on that front, Judy, is can the Raiders, can Maxx Crosby, can everybody put the toothpaste back in the tube with regard to him returning to the Raiders? Even if you're going to trade him, you're going to make it clear that Maxx Crosby is back in the building working with the Raiders. And yeah, we'll proceed as if he's going to be a Raider, but let's see about the trade talks, because now teams are going to come in and they're going to want pennies on the dollar for a potential trade, and the Raiders have to maintain a strong front if they are now going to turn around and trade him to another team. So keep all that in the back of your head, because Maxx Crosby, from what I understand from his friends, from people who have talked to him, I've heard from a few people say he is hot. He is angry as all can be that this played out the way that it did in Baltimore. The Ravens, though, quickly pivoted. And when I say quickly, what I mean is yesterday, teams were having discussions with Trey Hendrickson about a possible deal. Multiple teams. And I spoke to multiple of them involved. and it seemed like there was a mystery team that all of a sudden emerged at some point. Million agreed to this morning. Ian and Tom Pelissero reporting that this morning. The deal done. It's at $28 million per season. It can get up to 30 with incentives, but that also illustrates what we had been telling you for the last couple of days, which is Trey Hendrickson's market was in the lower 20s. He thought maybe he was going to be in the 30s, because here you got a Ravens team with its back against the wall that just got all this money back that they thought they were going to be paying Maxx Crosby, and now could really go strong to land Trey Hendrickson to get close to the point of $30 million. Deal gets done. Hendrickson headed to Baltimore. The Ravens get to keep those first-round picks and also get themselves a proven veteran pass rusher in Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, the tentacles of this story extending into now Trey Hendrickson, and that's just the beginning. We're scratching the surface on what this is going to mean, especially with the NFL draft right around the corner. And I know the three of you guys will have us covered here on NFL Network as that news continues to trickle in. Now, as far as the Ravens nixing deals, I guess we've kind of seen it before, just not at the level that we're discussing right now as it pertains to Maxx Crosby, sort of backing out of this deal. From a front office perspective, Mark Ross joins us. And Mark, your first person that I was thinking of as this news was coming in, because I knew you were going to be on the show with us. Give me some context. You're in the front office. You spent years doing it. What's your view on how this thing played out?
Well, that's why we kept saying when all these deals were done, they're not finalized. And the physical is such a major part of it, as we just saw there, where one team's doctor is not another team's doctor. And this happens where we, with the Giants and the Eagles, the Bills, I don't remember a time where we nixed a deal because of a failed physical, but we did the draft process exactly the same, where your own doctors put their own high-profile players off our draft board because of the physicals, where the doctors said, we're just not comfortable with this player. So we're thinking the Ravens were above board with all of this of, yes, once their doctors got their hands on Maxx Crosby, knowing he already had this injury, but may have been worse, or the long-term prognosis of this injury was worse than what they believed just hearing about it, and then said, okay, well, this is not worth the risk now. And for the Ravens, it may have been a case of also, well, do we rather have Trey Hendrickson and 2 first-round picks or Maxx Crosby? So you're looking at it at that football perspective as well. But yes, the nuances of your doctors have a lot of say in what's going on with your general manager, with your head coach. That's the pillar that can always be that final equalizer, as we just saw here with this deal.
You know, Mark, you kept saying it. It can't, yesterday on the show that we were working on, can't be official just yet. And I think from a fan's perspective, it almost sounds like a formality. Oh, it's gonna be okay,
right. Yeah.
Until it's not okay. And then we spend hour after hour here on NFL Network talking about this massive deal that goes the other way. And Steve, it's sort of interesting because Mark makes reference to sort of the compensation and how things have sort of changed as we get you sort of reset on what those trade details were going to go and look like. But you spent time in this organization. You understand the protocol here. How do you assess what you've seen?
Well, first of all, I believe it's not personal, right? And the reason I say it's not personal is I haven't spoken with anyone about this current situation, but I speak to people in the building. They always check in, vice versa, and you don't bring a guy in if it's personal, right? The personal things are always talked about and addressed prior to 100%, or he may not live out, right? Live out the contract or play out the contract is in entirety for the price tag and the equity they've given up.
Let me ask you this, because you've been in that building. Again, you know the people in that building. We all consider the Ravens being one of the most sound organizations in the NFL. Does this type of behavior, knowing the people you know in that building, damage their credibility in any way?
No, it doesn't damage their credibility. What you're going to have is the player / agency. They may push back and say that may not be the case. But again, Mark said it great. One team's doctor does not see identical to the other team's doctor. They all have different thresholds. And it's what you are comfortable with on your palate. That's bottom line.
So let's not forget Maxx Crosby. This was a left knee injury that he had, the surgery. He also had left ankle surgery about 2 years earlier on that same leg. So maybe there was something right there. I want to get to the Trey Hendrickson aspect of it. So first off, now the Ravens, it does look like, okay, we don't have to give up draft picks. we're signing a guy who's coming off of season-ending core surgery in division, coming and trying to say, I'm going to reestablish myself because there's a lot of doubters out there.
Yep.
I'm going to have a chance to win. This is a guy who played in New Orleans and Cincinnati. Now he, like Maxx Crosby, is going to feel a little bit closer to that evasive Super Bowl that he's had in his career. So it's very intriguing. There's so many different dynamics that we can talk about this because, with the Raiders, does Maxx Crosby stay there? Because the Ravens basically said he's too damaged goods for us. Does anybody else want to go medically sign him? Do you have the cap room? Do you have the personnel space? So we got all kind of show to chew on that, Mike, but a lot of different things to go on. But let's not forget, when it comes to that medical, that Crosby had surgery on the left ankle, the same leg he had surgery on with the left knee. We don't know if there's any type of tie there, but that may be something that played into this as well.
Yeah, Steve, you bring up a lot of really good questions, and I think those are going to be aimed at Mark Ross as we unfold free agent frenzy here on NFL Network. Mark, we're